Paul, walk us through the scenario analysis here. Does this go well? Does this go poorly? How does the market interpret this print?
Good morning. Kriti from the beautiful city of Singapore. Sun shining here. Everybody looking forward to the weekend. But before that, yes, we have that core PCE number that everybody is focusing on. I feel like, the way that the market is priced right now, people are expecting a slightly higher inflation reading, but they're also not that bothered about it. And I think that the reason for that is that the Fed has already quite clearly signaled to us that September is now very much in play, and most likely that they're going to be cutting there. And it feels to me like a lot of the decision makers have already made up their minds about that. So what we might see, maybe, depending on the number, would be people calibrating their bets for how much or how fast we move beyond that. People will be watching as well, obviously, for any indication we can get that the tariffs are being passed through to consumers more aggressively. I think that there's also the possibility there'll be slightly stronger service inflation, but it's the labour side, I think, of the equation that the Fed is really paying attention to and more worried about. And so that probably means that the market impact from today's figures is unlikely to be too huge.
So, Paul, we didn't get any market drama when it came to the French inflation number, but of course the political rumblings continue next week. Will the market drama there continue?
I think it's going to be really interesting to watch out there. We've seen that widening of the spreads. So far, it feels to me, I think that, it's more of a France issue than a Europe issue. The euro hasn't been under particular pressure so far. So, relatively contained to that market at the moment. But there is, little bits of political risk all over the place at the moment. And also in Asia, we're seeing some of that today. Some political protests in Indonesia, and that's really given that market a whack, both in terms of the currency and also in the stocks in particular. So, keep an eye on those individual pockets of risk where they're flaring up and that kind of thing. But I think the overall picture is, markets are pretty confident at the moment and looking robust.
Paul, it's nice when your stock market has a massive rally, just as global leaders are turning up in your country. I'm talking here, of course, about what is happening in China. I'm not drawing a connection between the two and suggesting there's any political interference in the stock market, but this stock market rally looks a little bit of a head-scratcher.
Yeah, it does, based on the economic data, at least, which has been so-so, a little bit poor, actually. We've seen quite a lot of misses, but there is a lot of cash that's been sitting on the sidelines. There are some positive narratives for China, particularly in that tech space that people have really been leaning into. And so it's been interesting to see the nuances in the market, and where there have been the real gains has been in those sort of new sectors, has been in smaller stocks and small caps. It's been, little parts of the market that don't necessarily catch the attention of international investors so much, whereas some of the big companies, and we saw it with Meituan this week, have been the ones that have been suffering. So Alibaba earnings coming up at the end of play today. That's going to be really instructive as to what the bigger companies look like in terms of the economy and how we go from here. The mainland stocks have been outperforming recently. Keep an eye on those in particular next week.